Hey everybody, it's time for Khantehnt!
Khantehnt! It's time to get slimed, baby!
Yeah, that time I got reincarnated as a slime. But first, if you
Wait,
are not...
what was that thing you said before? Slime. Billy and Mandy. What was that?
It's time to eat some slime!
That's what it's time for! Yeah!
Yeah!
Time to eat slime!
Bonus
Bonus
first,
episodes.
get our bonus episodes on Subscribestar. Our last one was on Read or Die, the old OVA you may remember.
Yeah.
The good old days of Adult Swim.
It was on Adult Swim. That means you want to see it, so go look at it.
Yeah. And also buy this thing.
AD タイム
Looking for something to get those anime fans that you know this holiday season? Well, BLU-RAYS!
I said the wrong thing.
BLU-RAY! G-Kids, who you may know for bringing all your favorite anime films to theaters over the last few years, is now bringing them to your house with Blu-ray releases of Weathering With You and...
Promare. That's right, we got special editions that they wanted us to let you know about because they're full of all kinds of cool stuff.
I have a whole analysis video about this movie where I go into extensive depth about why I like it a lot more than all of Makoto Shinkai's other movies, so I recommend watching it.
Imaishi and Nakashima, makers of Gurren Lagann and Kill La Kill, are back with a big old animated feature, and it's got some of the tightest 3D animation ever put on the animated screen.
Not to mention an incredible soundtrack that comes with that thing.
Look at all the stuff that comes with these, the collector's editions of these Blu-ray box sets, and they're available now for purchase for Christmas time. Links are in the description. HD, Ultra HD, posters, behind-the-scenes comments, stickers, and scripts. It's got all kinds of fun things for you and the fam.
So do it!
So do it, go buy these, they're available now.
食らい尽くせカオスリーダー
Alright, episodes 11 through 15 of The Slime Show. You are seeing this for the first time, so I'm going to ask you what you thought of this batch of episodes.
Right, so this is our first kind of big battle on large scale. I mean, we're dealing with an orc force of 200,000 men, women, and children that we're fighting against. And we've got our trained up recruits with their newly developed powers going against them. So as a story for that, it was quite straightforward. It did what I expected it to do. We get little hints that, ooh, the outside, like other demon forces seem to have been like behind all this, pulling the strings. Ooh, what does that mean for the future? That's all well and good. I would say that this was a cathartic series of episodes, at least as the war broke out, when it comes to like seeing our characters having developed and grown and like just seeing them do the cool shit with the powers they've now got. However, like the whole arc with like the Lizard Man tribe stuff was a bit of a flat line. It wasn't terrible, but the personality of, what's his name, of Gabiru, the Lizard Man trader, upstart chieftain guy, didn't do a lot for me, so it was not the best.
This show has an odd habit of introducing characters at their absolute worst and then trying to kind of be like, no, but wait! He's actually kind of a good guy.
He is a good guy. We say, like, even his, so we meet him. The first episode he's in, this is like the worst episode, possibly of the show, but just of what we've seen so far, of where it's focused on Lizard Man Gabiru, and like him with the Lizard Man. The coming threat of the orcs means we want to recruit more power, so they're here to reach out to the slime village or whatever and get the goblins recruited. And like the episode really is just him being hyped up by his boys as, oh, you're the coolest man, you're the sickest dude, yeah, you're gonna inherit like leadership of the Lizard Man one day. Why not do it now, goddammit? Why not do it now? And then his ego gets stoked and he is like humbled, but in a way that he doesn't realize that he's being humbled because he's like, they must have tricked me because that little boy goblin who defeated me, which was a pretty cool scene, he must have been the actual super secret super leader. But no, he's just the tip of the iceberg.
The most fun part of this episode is definitely that, you know, Lizard Man's like, you guys, we want to join you, but only if you follow us. And they're like, fuck that. So out of everybody who could have kicked this guy's ass, in order to make us understand exactly how weak these guys are, Gobta kicks his ass.
Right,
Our weakest boy. He uses shadow movement jutsus, which is pretty neat. I just love that, like, they continually portray Gobta as like more and more of an absolute badass, and then right afterwards remind you that he is still Gobta. You know, like no matter how badass he may be, he's still the least badass, and that needs to be reminded. It needs to be put in his place.
It serves the function of letting us know that like Gobta isn't like worthless. He's fairly strong, but like compared to our higher level guys, like even our like little Gobta can still kick your ass. Yeah. So everybody else is just on another fucking level.
Yeah, he's our jobber. Like he's normally there to be weak and impotent.
But the ironic thing about jobbers, I'm cooking up an idea, a video about this, about how characters who like seem the weakest or the most boring actually like are the best characters because they get the most fights and they are the coolest boys and they get to do the most shit. Because like look at how many amazing fights did Ramiru have? Like 0, and then he had one kind of fight where he just kind of did the win thing, which is way more boring than seeing like if Gobta had like a real fight against like the Orc General or something. That could have been like fucking sick.
Highly entertaining.
But and he gets a pretty sick move against the Orc General, but you know, our focus is elsewhere for those. Yeah. So the Lizard Man stuff was fine, and it gets the fact that in the next episode it becomes a full-scale like rebellion or coup where he takes out the leader. And again, this is why I like the guy, as you're saying. We see him at his worst, but Gabiru, whatever his name is, he is doing it because he's just trying to do what's best for the village. And he's worried that his dad won't have the strength or leadership ability. And yes, like ego is mixed in there, but like we can see he's not a bad man.
Idiots. Like the lizard people are just dumb. Like by and large, I guess this is something that this whole arc is like I feel two ways about it because there's lots of stuff that's really good and then lots of stuff that's just like so straightforward as to be cheesy or like just kind of not interesting. Like with the Lizard Men, I like the idea that Gabiru being cheered on by his men causes him to think like, oh, I'm going to take over and like thwart my father. It's just that it happens, as most things in the show do, in kind of just the most like abrupt and like straightforward way possible. If he just like walks in and says like, Dad, I'm taking over, and Dad's like, wait, don't do this, you know, like
then he does.
There's not like a conversation or counter argument or anything. But I mean, in fairness, again, the lizard people are very dumb. They're very quick to act. It just makes me wonder, like, if the village elder is supposed to be, like, in any way smart or together, how did he raise such a dumbass village of lizard people?
Well, there is another influence at work. So first of all, what makes Gabiru stand out is that he was named by that guy, Gelmud, who is, like, the bigger force from, like, the Demon Lord side of things or whatever, who gave him his name, and we learn later, like, he's been doing this on purpose to raise some people up to, like, make someone become so strong that they could be like a Demon Lord level guy that he could control or whatever. But we see the agents of Gelmud, like this clown-looking motherfucker, whatever. He shows up to tell the guy where, and this is why it gets a little morally convoluted, I guess. It's like, are the lizard men foolish and just full of ego, and that's why they did a rebellion, or is it just that the dark forces got to Gabiru and played with his heart and made him think that the right thing to do was take out his dad, and so he really isn't responsible, because those are two very different, like, moral consequences, and they do both at the same time, kinda. So I don't know exactly what the point was, but obviously the point is that the outside Demon Lord forces are corrupting people and doing bad things. I understand.
So, like, I think that it's interesting that Gabiru, in spite of being portrayed as, like, kind of a moron and taking over in a bad way, once he's out on the battlefield, we see that he is actually a good tactician.
Yeah.
He knows how to lead troops in battle. And that was kind of what I meant when I said that this show has a habit of, like, introducing characters at their worst and then showing you that, no, actually they are useful in some way so that we will want to see them, like, reformed or taken in, you know, and changed, which, in the case of Gabiru, he's one of the more fun characters to have that with, just because he was kind of a bad guy. In a way, like, he reminds me kind of the antagonist of this arc in a way.
Yeah, in a sense. He's really reminds me of the Chancellor guy from the last batch of episodes, or the first batch of episodes, whatever that was. We're getting these, like, villainous characters who have quite positive traits, like, really just under the surface, and just their actions are questionable. But yeah, I don't know, like, and actually every single villain we've met so far, we get the explanation for why they did what they did, even the oncoming orc hordes. like they've just been corrupted by the Demon Lord. It all makes sense. This feels a little like Steven Universe. Every single villain gets like redeemed or explained why they did what they do. And with them, even the big bads are all redeemed and become good people at the end. I'm wondering if they're going to do the same thing at the end of this.
I mean, Rimuru does kill some, like, even, you know, Orc Lord was a good guy. He still had to kill him. But, like, he kind of does the inherited will thing again. Where he's like, well, this is what he was trying to do, so I'll name the next orc in line Geld after him so that he can continue his legacy. There's a lot of naming people after whoever came before, giving them that purpose to carry on going on in this show.
Yeah.
I'm wondering how much, like, how deep into the theme of inherited will this series might eventually go, because it definitely seems like something it keeps playing with. And also the theme of eating, because there's a connection made here between the fact that the orcs, they just want to eat everything in sight, and Rimuru is the ultimate eater. His power is he eats things, consumes them, brings them into his own power, which is the same thing the orcs are doing. Everything they eat gets fed into the group, and they all gain the powers of that thing. So, like, you know, he basically, it comes down to, he says, if the orcs are motivated by, like, hunger as their driving force, I am motivated by consumption as my driving force, which I think is an interesting thing to phrase as an opposite. It's like the orcs need to continually eat because they are so hungry. Rimuru doesn't have to eat anything and just wants to eat everything and, like, assimilate everything. And, like, to me, what this show is Rimuru assimilating everyone, you know, whether literally or through socially, you know, like he's trying to make everybody be on the same team. And
I was explaining to somebody who was shit-talking the show a little bit, or being like, this seems like kind of a bad show. And I was like, well, slow down there. Because the one element that I like by far the most is the, like, world building element, and watching Rimuru assembling a team and you know, going from like from zero. This is the true ReZero. He's not even human, doesn't have a physical, he's got like this undefined physical form. He has to absorb everything one by one. And as you said, like building a town, recruiting the goblins, absorbing the powers of the wolves. Now we've alliances with the lizard people. And, you know, ultimately forming this like nation that has been formed of like all these monster villages and whatnot at the end. All that is really cool to watch. Well, even watching the town grow from like straw huts to like brick houses, and now to like a full-grown, almost city level in capital city Rimuru, as it's going to be called. All that's enjoyable to watch. Yeah. And as long as the big fights are entertaining and cool, which they pretty much were during this section.
The anime does a lot. I can't imagine this would be nearly as good to read this fight, because I mean, there are some elements where the anime makes it a little bit annoying, like when the Orc Lord kills Gelmud, and then everybody just watches as he eats it, and then gains all his powers and becomes a Mao, and it's just like, nobody could have done something, like, made him not eat that corpse, like, in those fucking 25 seconds. Yeah. That's something that you wouldn't care about in text, because you wouldn't see it happening at that rate, but, like, all the action scenes, like, they just put so much fucking care into animating this goddamn show. Like, all the big fights between the Kijin and the orcs are awesome. Big explosions everywhere, giant attacks. The power scaling is off the Richter in this show. Yep. And I think it's interesting to compare this to the start of the arc, because it opens with Rimuru fighting all the ogres, and it sort of is suggested that he pushes, like, he shows them like his most powerful attack. Right. And they're like, they're all strong. They're like not as strong as him, but they're pretty strong. Now that they've all been leveled up to Kijin, we see them go out and battle again, and each of them is as powerful as he was when he was beating them, and he's even more powerful than that, is what it seems like.
It seems to be about right, yeah.
So we've rather than this being, because you were saying, like, I hope that Rimuru will get challenged soon. I wouldn't say that
hasn't happened. That hasn't really happened.
It's not them being challenged. If anything, it was just trying to show us seemingly, like, where the squad is at. Like, in the same way that first fight was, here's where Rimuru's at when he takes on this squad. Now it's, here's where the squad's at going forward. You know, even though, like, this was the first real arc, there's a moment where the Kijin themselves are saying, like, this is Rimuru's step one. Like, this is the very first thing, and, like, they all seem to just already know what he's going to do. They're like, Rimuru's going to take over this world. His ambitions are too grand. Anything he's planning to do is bigger than anything else. So, like, you know, they're just on board for that.
See, through all that, it's interesting to see Rimuru reflecting on this. There was one moment when he sees Benimaru, the red leader ogre guy, like being a cool leader who forgives like the leader orc guy, or the new leader, who was, of course, like they were basically enslaved by this power they were given, starvation, which, you know, forced them to eat and consume and do all that stuff, which is a pretty cool power, and I liked it contrasted. Whereas, Rimuru condenses everything into himself and has the power personally. The fact that it's shared over everybody. And just going back for a second, the fact that we were talking about Gelmud, the lizard man, he was doing really well against the orcs. It was Gabiru. So all these fucking names are very similar. Yeah, but Gabiru was doing well fighting in the marshlands. They've got like an environmental advantage. But it was the fact that they didn't anticipate that like eating, when they kill some of the orcs, others will eat them, and all of them get stronger when they do that. Yeah. Like, he didn't anticipate that level of shit.
And also, once they eat a lizard man, they gain the lizard man ability to walk faster in water, which is like the biggest tactical advantage.
And that's what really fucked over their entire ability to win. If not for that, they might well have won. They were like, we're not even going to need any help to beat these guys. We're so at such an advantage in the marshlands, we can do it. But it was the fact that he didn't have the wisdom or the cautiousness of his dad or whatever. That's what really did it. So I don't know, that power system was cool to see. But ultimately, I like seeing I've given up, really. I'm officially given up on seeing Rimuru be challenged. I no longer care. I don't care if he has like a real fight or whatever, because that's just not what the show is doing, and it's not even my favorite thing about the show. Right. My favorite thing is seeing the people under Rimuru grow and develop, and Rimuru himself too, and do cool stuff.
So, something I realized, and I rewatched actually the first 10 episodes mostly before going into this, dubbed, because I was showing it to someone else. And first of all, I'll say that this dub, just to comment on it, it's serviceable. This is one of those shows that I don't mind watching dubbed, because even in Japanese, they're all doing funny voices. Like, it's a comedy show, everybody's goofy and over the top, so it's like, it's not that different. Some of the cultural references are fucked up or whatever,
sure.
But like, you know, they're pretty faithful to the original voices, so it was fine in that regard. But like, something I started to pick up on is, I really think that this author is great at, like, why the story is happening, like what effects it'll have on the characters, not so much at what the story is. So like, when we go into a big fight scene, it'll be like, we establish where all the characters are at, then we have a big fight, and then we establish where all the characters are at after the fight. Both of those parts are interesting. The fight, not that interesting. Like, no. And again, like, it was entertaining to, like, I'm honestly surprised how entertained I was by the fight, just because the animation is good.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It was the kind of thing where I was like, I really feel like I should be skipping this fight, because I know it's dumb and nothing's really happening, but it looks cool. Well, I'm willing to sit through it.
There were two things that I liked about that. I mean, we're seeing all our ogres kind of doing their big attacks, because they're like the strong guys.
Kijin, they are now.
Right, they're now Kijin, and they make that distinction clear several times. Like, the big sword secretary girl, by the way, I got a legitimate big laugh when, at the beginning of episode 11, Purple Ogre has become Purple Kijin, and now is wearing like a suit and whatever. And she just has a line about like, yeah, I'm the secretary of the princess and what's-his-face, because I looked like one. And so I feel like being a secretary. And they were like, yeah, I guess you're a secretary.
I like that so all the Kijin have like kind of thin personalities, but they're slowly getting fleshed out a little more. And like, with Secretary Girl, her thing is that she just signs Rimuru up for shit. Like, she gets personally excited hearing people say stuff. And so while he's thinking, like, should I help them out? She's just like, of course Rimuru will help you out. And he's like, all right, you know. Like,
did you feel a sense, since you just watched the first 10 episodes again or whatever, did you feel like, I felt whiplash when starting episode 11 and all those characters seemed like they'd always been there. Not in a way that I liked, in a way that I was just surprised. Like, these characters are talking a lot, and I don't know them very well. What's going on here?
It's kind of like I said, I feel like these characters were all introduced because, like, the author literally sat down and was like, all right, like, we're gonna have to start doing action scenes. You know, like, let's introduce a bunch of shonen anime characters, and then they just are in the show now, and that's just our cast now. These are just the friends who've been there all along.
And to give it another kind of excuse or whatever that I kind of like and would sell it, the fact that, like, I think it was just the last episode they all got given names, like, that has a literal effect in the show of making you have like a personality now when you didn't before. So if perhaps it's a joke on that, even if I can just interpret it that way for myself, I like it more thinking about it that way. That kind of explains why there's suddenly characters when they didn't have much before. But on the fight, there's like 3 swords people. That ninja dude is fucking he's popping off, and Rimuru was clearly mad gay for the dude.
I was gonna.
There was a lot of that.
I had to bring this up. Yeah. So I think it's really interesting that like, yeah, I mean, Rimuru is presented as like, you know, non-gendered, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Androgynous.
Asexual.
Body.
Yeah, whatever.
Well, yeah, literally has no fucking parts.
Right.
But like, yeah, it's interesting that, you know, he was a virgin in his original world. He was like excited to see elf honeys and shit. He got to play in all the boobs and everything.
Yeah.
But as we've gone on, he's flirting with the guys as much as the girls. He's always blushing at the other 2 dudes, the pretty boys on his team. I just think Rimuru is a big homo in general. He is the global homo agenda. He's literally trying to homogenize the globe. That is actually what Globo Homo stands for.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Global homogenization. He is trying to do that.
It kind of needs more development to make any clear prescriptions of. Because I mean, when
he just blushes at those 2 guys a lot.
He spends a lot of time
and talking
with
about how
boobs.
handsome and cool they are.
I mean, I'm getting mixed signals here at the very least. So
he just likes both. I would have to assume.
I suppose so.
It's just down for everything.
In any case, during the fight, the big explosion that the Benimaru was doing, the weird like black fire contained within a dome, which I assume is to like contain they didn't explain that, which I appreciated. I think it's like a 2-part spell. There's a dome and fire inside it, so it doesn't get carried out of it. I mean, talk about being literally Sasuke, shooting black fire around, but fair enough. And what I was saying before about what was cool about that fight was that we're presented with like 200,000 orcs, that we're getting that number specifically many times. And we see, like, on the battlefield, with each blast or each swing, the Kijin are blowing up, like, hundreds, if not thousands, every single time. And we're given the number afterward of, like, 150,000 remain. That means they killed 50,000 orcs during that battle. And I was glad to kind of get a number on that, because it just helps you think about how much damage they're really doing with, like, each blast. And the orcs are less powerful now because they've lost like the benefits of starvation.
It also gives you a sense of how beneficial the orcs are. Like, we now have 150,000 of them. It takes 6 of these guys about 20 minutes to kill about a 4th of those. So maybe they'll last like 5 minutes as a meat shield in a battle one day.
Yeah, I mean, and now, I mean, since we're just skipping around, they
all have names now. Rimuru named all of them.
He named every single
He spent 10 days naming all the orcs.
And of course, you know, fell into a food coma again. And now, though, I mean, going back, it's weird. He didn't name, he named all the goblins. There's not that many ogres that were turned into Kijin, but he did them all. And now he's named every single orc 150,000. Jesus Christ. He only named 1 wolf, though. And
they all got the power from that because of their mind link. So
I just
evolved
feel
them all into Tempest Wolves.
I just feel bad for the other wolves. I get that they're just a collective unit, but I guess they really are like a beehive or something.
Rhonda leveled up again on the battlefield. He's like a black Tempest Wolf, I think, something like that.
Yep. But I guess that's the advantage that Rimuru has. He's bringing everyone in his monster empire. He's like making into like a sentient, you know, player character with like a backstory and a personality and an ability to grow and change. So all that goes along pretty well. And the animation was pretty exceptional at times. One of my favorite moments was after, I mean, the whole battle goes on, the Orc Lord evolves into an Orc Disaster. So he is now a full Demon Lord level. And, you know, he doesn't fight with him really much per se. He just goes, fuck fighting, I'm just gonna try to devour you. You try to devour me, let's see who wins. That seems to be Rimuru's like strongest
The impression
power.
I got was that Rimuru had like used all his other strongest magic and that didn't work. So he was just like, all right, eating you is gonna be the guy. So,
possibly.
Like, the implication being that like, basically they are on par in power if, you know, Rimuru just, there's more of,
we did get the moment.
Rimuru ultimately.
They cut off the demon, the Orc Disaster's head, Demon Lord, whatever, and he just fixes it. This is clearly a powerful man who you can't do much against. And And when the Rimuru, of course, wins, he does this whole speech about like we're gonna help your orcs. You were a king. You were trying to help. We get the backstory of the king in this flashback, which is pretty endearing. He seemed to have always had the power to regenerate. So he was living through a famine with the orcs in some like desert plain somewhere, and he saw some of his orc kids starving. He just rips off his arm and gives it to him to eat, and he just regrows it apparently. Wouldn't that just solve the crisis right there? This man could be a one-man food factory.
It seemed like that could potentially be the case. Maybe it just grows back slow and there's not enough of his body to...
That's possible. It's not sustainable for 200,000 people at least. That could make some sense. So he's, because he was starving so much, he was like, I'm gonna try to go get help. And that's when he came across Gelmud, who gave him this Faustian bargain I'll give you the power to save your people, but you'll be an evil demon man or whatever. So in this final battle, Rimuru's trying to absorb him and successfully does so. And wasn't that cool? And the animation of the big like slime pillar that formed as he absorbed the guy, did a cool twisty thing and then bursts forth. That part was fucking sick. A lot of just really flashy stuff in this whole like war arc. So I don't know what else to say about that other than it made sense, straightforward. Every character was kind of a good guy except for like the demon lord working guy Gelmud, but was delivered in a pretty cool way.
Really satisfying to watch his head get cut off. That was a great moment.
Yeah, very Ghibli-esque. I don't know.
But I would say that this arc is probably my least favorite part of the season.
Sure.
And I think the problem is that it's a little too convoluted. It's that like it takes too much explanation for such a incredibly straightforward plot that gets resolved so easily to have taken so many conversations between so many different characters about what to do about it. Like the resolution is they just go and kill all the fucking orcs. Like there's no like crazy scheme that has to be hatched out necessarily. Like you've got the Gabiru drama and that's kind of its own thing going on. But like we not only have Gelmud, but there's also his like clown partner guy who's also there, and like there's also this forest djinn spirit that's telling them they have to go fight the orcs, and like I'm sure that was mostly like we want to introduce the idea of the dryad. I'm sure it'll be relevant again later, but it was just like kind of another thing in here that I would have totally forgotten about.
Yeah.
Like if I hadn't just rewatched this, you could not have expected me to remember the fucking dryads being in the show. Like,
well, I guess getting to the last episode or whatever, as somebody watching this for the first time, I wasn't bored at any time except for the specific like Lizard Man arc that I was like, this isn't doing much for me. I don't really care about these characters. Yes, they matter. They didn't even really matter ultimately. Maybe
this was worse for me because I was rewatching the show and I knew how this was all going to resolve.
Yeah.
But like. It's I guess I would say it's too insistent on the necessity of the plot happening where like we are introduced to the ogres and they're like, hey, our thing got fucked up by orcs. There's a big orc disaster coming. By that point, I'm already in the mindset of Rimuru's gonna fight the orcs. That's this arc. Yeah. So then to have like the lizard men show up and be like, we also want to fight the orcs. And then the dryad show up and be like, actually, you have to fight the orcs. It's like, I didn't need...
emphasis needed. We were already doing that,
We were on our way there.
That was kind of weird that she also just said, please do this thing you were already doing.
Yeah.
I don't know why you'd add that.
Stuff like that was odd. It just felt like it again, took too many characters, too many words to describe what they were going to do, which was very straightforward. But... I do know, because I've seen the whole thing, that like characters like Gabiru like will be fleshed out in the next arc, and we will be happy to have experienced his story at that point. So like I feel like this show does better with the characters after they've been introduced than it does when it actually introduces them.
Sure, and even with like somebody like the Dryad who didn't really do much and seemed redundant. I think that her importance, this goes to like my complaints about the Lizard Man and like all these factions. The orcs were more interesting, just as the antagonistic force without a ton of personality until afterward. I feel like they're being introduced ultimately to be used for world building and empire expansion purposes, which is what we get to in episode 15 when we establish the the Jura Forest Alliance. So after the war, everybody just gets together in a room. The bad guys, the good guys, whatever. They say, we're pardoning all the orcs. It wasn't their fault. Sorry they murdered a lot of you guys, but you murdered a lot of them too, so let's all just watch this thing.
Forgiveness is obviously a big theme in this show as well. Yeah. Part of the Globo Homo initiative is telling people, hey, I know those guys killed all your guys, but they're not going to do it anymore, so... Maybe don't kill them back.
Makes sense. In this case, there really are no villains except for the Demon Lord people, so that makes sense. And they're going to deal with them in time, no doubt. And so Chancellor Rimuru is appointed leader of this alliance. And this gets to a point I was making before and didn't finish, which was just that Rimuru, like you were saying, all the characters, the Kijin, like the orc leaders, the goblin leaders, and even the wolf guys as well. Everybody loves Rimuru so much. I think he's such a based god, and he's doing all this dope shit. In Rimuru's head, Rimuru's really just going with the flow and is thinking like, wow, Benimaru, you're a good leader. I should be more like you. Like, you're good. I'm just some fucking asshole just doing my best. But he's genre savvy and he has OP powers.
I mean, like, what the number one quality of a good leader is recognizing what other people can do.
Yes.
Like your ability to tell them, hey, you look lost, go do this.
Mm.
You know, like that's what makes them want to follow you. So he's great at that.
He has been, very successful at that. And so ultimately, now we've got this alliance, the orcs, the lizards, like blah, 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 all these races, they're all united under one kingdom of the Kingdom of the Jura Forest Alliance, of which he is Chancellor. And then, what a twist, Dwarf King Man arrives. Having heard about all this shit going on, the Dwarf King shows up and says, this power is right next to my kingdom and is a threat, so we need to work this out one way or another.
Yeah, and also it turns out he was trained by the old guy. The king was the student of old dude's sword, and now old dude has trained everybody else in the village. Everything is very interconnected.
Yeah, it sure was. By the way, I was confused. He's like the king of the dwarf kingdom. He's just very large and big.
He's definitely a full-sized man.
He must be like one of these, like the Kijin to the ogre doesn't even really look like an ogre anymore.
Yeah.
I assume he's like an evolved dwarf man.
That would make sense.
I don't know. That is a thing that happens in this show, so I'm just gonna roll with that. But I mean, long story short, they have an epic sword fight where their souls clash in a manly way, and the dwarf king is just like, yeah, you seem cool. We'll be allies. That's fine. And what he said, like, your kingdom's going to be bigger and stronger than mine, like any day now. So let's just form an alliance, because I'm intimidated by you.
Man.
And that makes a lot of sense. And that's basically where we leave things.
Yeah.
Not much else is said.
I'm excited to go forward because we are gonna meet some interesting. We finally meet a character who doesn't think that Rimuru's the most based person ever.
Imagine that.
And then have some adventures. I don't want to spoil anything. But
Sure.
Yeah, like. I do think this is like the weakest arc of the first season in terms of just, again, just taking too long to make things happen. I don't really get why. I don't know if this was one book, but like 6 episodes seemed long for this arc. 5 episodes would have easily sufficed, in my opinion. But
cut down that lizard man thing. You don't have to keep every beat of the story, but just do it faster, and I would have been happy.
we don't need like 12 of Gabiru's men to reinforce his ego. It could be like 2 in those scenes.
To be fair, one aspect I did like and get some laughs out of me was that consistently through Gabiru's entire arc, there were 3 hype men that were with him, and even at one time we get a death bait moment where those specific 3 hype men look like they died, but no, they were saved in the nick of time. And then at the end, as Gabiru's been kicked out for launching a coup, those 3 hype men follow him and go with him on his quest. So they're going to keep the whole hype man thing going.
Keep the bad influence going on Gabiru.
That was the one aspect of that I thought was kind of funny. So I certainly didn't think this was all bad. It sounds like I kind of like this section more than you overall.
Maybe just because I've seen it twice now.
Yeah.
Like, again, I think a lot of these characters become more interesting in the next arc, or at least get fleshed out a little more. Like, like we've said many times, the most interesting thing about the show is the evolution and progression of the characters.
Yeah.
It's that, like, it makes a point to make them change, and even if it's in small or straightforward ways, it's just entertaining to see it happen.
I was thinking about a show, or rather a game I like as a comparison to this, and it reminded me of this game Forager, which I've made like a small little meme video about during me and Math of a tour or whatever, or really just any like town growth or city growth, your fucking Rune Factory, or even like a Sim City. I enjoyed this show on the same way that I enjoy playing through those. I just like seeing small thing be built and get bigger and grow more complex and more productive and all that stuff.
Rune Factory is a pretty good comparison for this.
Yeah.
Or Dragon Quest Builders, obviously.
Right, or Dark Cloud, as we talked about before, anything like that. So on that level, it has not disappointed me yet. And
I think on that level, it's only going to get better.
Well, that's great. I actually worry if it goes too much into characters. I haven't been impressed by character writing on almost anyone so far. Reamer was cool, but straightforward and simple. That's true for many of the characters. I'm worried they won't be able to deliver if they emphasize that too much. But then again, they haven't really had much chance to do so either. So I don't know. All in all, I have pretty positive hopes going forward, and want to see where it goes.
Cool, cool. Well, you too can find out where it goes by subscribing and then paying us money on Subscribe Star to watch our bonus episodes. And if you want to say Khantehnt at the end of one of our videos, send us a clip on either the Discord or on Twitter. Is there anything else?
No, that's all we have to say. See you soon, everybody, on the next episode! This could be you at the end. Bye!